The conversation about the South African Communist Party and the contestation of state power is not a new conversation. It's a conversation that the party has had over the years. I mean, resolutions have been taken. I mean, you can go as far back as the 2005 Special National Congress with the emerging discussion document adopted in 2006. And of course, they did not contest then. I mean, they took another resolution I think in 2007. They took another resolution in the recent 14th National Congress of the SACP in 2017. So it's not a new idea. It's an idea that within the ranks of the South African Communist Party, I think it's an idea that excites most because of their political nature of the posture that the ANC has taken post-1994. So in the past 30 years, the South African Communist Party, at almost every epoch and every space where it feels that the ANC has veered of its strategic mission, they've always muted this idea of the SACP contesting state power. So for me, it's not a surprise, but also I don't think it's something to be excited about. Right? Of course, they've contested in Metsimahula, I think in 2016. But it's not something to be excited about. That's my biggest point. I mean, the SACP is always speaking reconfiguration of the alliance, in particular at moments where it feels that it is not being able to be at the center of the levers of power within the broader tripartite alliance, and of course within the ANC itself, to be able to influence its policy position and its strategic advances. And because of that, it always almost seems like a threat that they come up with. Now they are faced with the government of national unity, which they seem through the SG's utterances in recent media engagements that they are not in agreement with. Now, again, the idea of the reconfiguration alliance comes again. The resolution on the on the contestation of power comes again. For me, it always seems like a threat to threaten the ANC so that the ANC includes them in the processes of governing. I don't think it's a very principled position because they've never followed through. Since the advent of democracy, at every epoch, this idea of the SACP going at it alone always comes up, and almost they're never able to follow through. I mean, we can go back into the times of the South African Communist Party's opposition of the gear policy. Even then, the idea of the SACP being able to go at it alone came about. So I don't think we should be surprised. I don't think also, I mean, if I'm being honest, as someone who has followed this South African politics for the past 10 years, I don't think it's something that we should take serious until it happens. Until we see the next elections coming up, and the South African Communist Party has registered themselves and they've put their candidates in, and we've seen their posters on the streets. I don't think we must take it seriously.
Especially as we've heard this before, not too long ago, I'm afraid, just before the 2024 elections, just on some of, the sentiment that the SACP is alluding to, and as far as the ANC is concerned, saying that, the ANC is no longer aligned to matters like the economic policy and transformation. If the SACP were to then, be really, really truthful in terms of what they want to see happen in alliance with its, transformation agenda, as it were, they could be joining, quite frankly, other political parties that are seemingly in agreement in terms of what they stand for. There's plenty to go for the MK party, for one, and then, of course, you've seen the caucus that has also joined the MK party. In its view, one would argue that if they were serious, they would go that route. But I'm inclined to agree with you in as far as saying that we may see a change again before the local government of 2026, where the ANC will then, again convince the SACP not to go it alone.
I mean, the South African Communist Party will not struggle for allies in the South African political landscape. Should it look for new allies which are aligned to some of the strategic objectives that the party has in pursuance of the socialist state. I mean, but one of the things that also the South African Communist Party must come to terms with is that in the left axis, where they ideologically politically locate themselves, they've almost lost hegemony, they've lost influence. For strategic views on the state of the country and the state of the socialist struggle in the country, I don't think anyone wants to looks to the SACP in terms of what its view is. I mean, everyone almost looks at the EFF, and in recent years, people will look at the MK party for views of the political parties in the left axis. So the South African Communist Party also must come to terms with the idea that it may not have the influence of society it once enjoyed. And this is because of its continued cockling of the ANC, even when the ANC is being viewed as veering away from politics of the left. I mean, this, as I've said, this is not new. The SACP must not act as if it is the first time that they've come to criticize the ANC as veering away from the pathway to the achievement of the National Democratic Revolution. In the 1998 Congress, already Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki spoke to them almost very harshly and very robustly about their criticism of GIA, because at the time they were criticizing GIA as a policy. They've criticized Thabo Mbeki, and towards the 2007 elective conference of the ANC, they supported Jacob Zuma because of this very idea that they were feeling that the ANC is being veered away from its politics of the left or socialist politics and the strategic mission of the National Democratic Revolution. So it's nothing new, but unfortunately, this is now happening when the SACP has almost been dislodged on its hegemonic base in the left axis of the country. It must come to terms with this. It will never struggle for allies, but it will not go into that space as the hegemonic voice of socialist views in the country as it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And if they don't come to terms with this, I mean, they will be shooting themselves in the foot. They need a real serious introspection as a party in terms of what has there been their achievements and their commitments in the past 30 years with regards to the pursuance of the socialist struggle, because that is the only thing I think will make them be able to be listened to again when they speak about socialist perspectives in the country. Because currently I don't think there's anyone who sits and waits to hear what is the view of the SACP, in particular with the current political landscape of the country, because they are viewed as an extension of the ANC, and this is their own doing, because they have not been able to properly distinguish themselves as an independent political organization that has its own political mission that it's pursuing.
All right, Thobani, thank you so much for your views. Really do appreciate your time. Of course, Thobani Zikalala is political analyst, just reacting there to the South African Communist Party's Central Committee plenary, which ended today, and also just making it known that they will be going it alone ahead of the local government elections in 2026.